walked in, no one's wearing masks, and the first thing that happens is the old guy next to the door goes. I was like, great.
Fantastic.
Welcome to the Hoopercast, everybody.
Welcome.
Thanks for joining us, for watching, listening, supporting us any way you can. One way you can do that is by telling other people about the show. Next time you're talking about your favorite thing to listen to, whether you got your music and Katy Perry and your whatever, I don't know, music, but whatever it is, doesn't matter.
I was going to say, who are we talking to?
Yeah.
A teenage girl from 2007?
A 7-year-old from 2021. But yeah, just tell people about us, recommend us, share us if you like the show, tell other people about it so that they can also like the show.
Yeah.
Hello, Dustin.
Hey, Hooper.
We got a real doozy in our hands tonight. We ended up seeing a new release.
We did.
Yes. All right. So we won't be around the bush anymore. The film tonight, for our discussion purposes, is Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Yeah.
I need to assemble an elite team to help get my son back.
I know what you're looking for. A dream team. Them, shoot the ball. Let's try that again, shall we?
King James. Welcome to the Space Jam.
Okay, so that was a bit from the trailer of Space Jam: A New Legacy. This is the new release from Warner Brothers. It is available on HBO Max until August 15th, I believe it is. Stars LeBron James in the leading role as himself. It was written by a focus group, directed by a machine, and that's pretty much what this movie is. I gave this film 1.5 stars. So
okay.
I had seen trailers and just decided this was a bad idea. And then I had heard reaction that it took steps story-wise that put it ahead of the original film. And that sort of the rest of it was just equally kind of silly. So I kind of went into it with my kids a little optimistic about the movie itself and like what we'd be getting out of this. And so I was like, I don't want to do this. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'll do this. And then afterwards I was like, I wish I hadn't done this. 1.5 stars. So this teetered just between not pissing me off and pissing me off. A lot of critics I follow ended up thinking the movie was harmless and cute, and I do not share that reaction. Kids, sure. Kids are going to like any kids movie because it's new and fresh and therefore desirable. But I do not know who this movie is for. It's far too reliant on adult references for its jokes, yet the humor sensibility itself is too juvenile for adults. Lots of like, oh, that's cold. Like, reaction shots. You've got to be kidding me stuff. My kids have no fucking idea who LeBron James is. So that factor is gone.
Sure.
So did I enjoy this movie? No, not really. I didn't. The very idea that Dom Ball, the game they're playing at the end, because it's not basketball, it's Dom Ball. The very idea that game has random bullshit rules that come out of nowhere is irritating to me because it disorients me in the game and it gives me nothing to anchor myself in the third act conflict. Because, in the original film, even when things are kind of going crazy, most people generally know how basketball works, and therefore the action is easier to follow, even when the toons start using their powers, whatever you want to call them, powers. But here, the point system is whatever the script needs it to be, and it was annoying. So we get rare moments of character agency, like a choice that Bugs makes, towards the end of the film that actually felt like within character and like on point for somebody like that. They tried to make this a different story dynamic than the first film. So I'm going to give it points for servicing an actual fundamental story arc for kids. Because you got to remember, we can't take shots of this film without calling out the similarities in fault with the original film. The original film is a giant marketing campaign, just like this movie is. And this movie actually attempted to make it a father-son story about letting your kids be themselves, not putting your expectation, not projecting your goals and expectations upon them. So in that sense, it's perfectly serviceable for kids because at the end of the day, it teaches them be themselves and that sort of thing. But everything else in terms of its execution is just as silly as the first movie, if not worse. And I'll say more about the first movie in a minute because we watched that one after we finished this one, and so I was able to pick out, okay, that's stupid, or no, that's still good things that it does. So I don't know. What was your star rating, Dustin?
I gave it 1 star. I mean, this movie legitimately pissed me off.
Really?
I also went in having seen the trailer and tried not to pass judgment on it. Like, I watched this day one, so I was at least interested enough to seek it out and be there day one. But after having seen the trailer, my expectations were super low, and the film met those expectations right where they were. It didn't supersede them in being awful, and it didn't elevate them at all either. So, yeah, I mean, look, every 90s kid loves Space Jam, and we grew up on it. We watched it, over and over. I had it on VHS. I took the VHS to school to show it off. Like, I remember being like so incredibly excited that Michael Jordan was playing with Bugs Bunny, and like,
oh yeah,
that was so cool to me.
The fact that they acknowledged his name on the poster credits, like he was a real person, I was like, oh my God, it felt like the adults were playing along with you as a kid. Like, he's a real person to me, and he's being acknowledged as a real person in this marketing. Yeah. I didn't say the word marketing, but in this,
sure,
this branding is so cool.
Right. I no bones about it. The first film is flawed. The first film isn't really about anything. It's just a movie where Michael Jordan plays basketball with cartoon characters. That's about the extent of it. Like, there is no large character arc where Michael's a better person after, or Bugs is a better person after.
Nope.
But I will say this, like, as silly as the first one is, the conceit actually makes sense. So if you remember in the first one, and we can talk more about this in spoilers, but this is just the general concept of the film is, in the first one, these tiny little aliens come to abduct the Looney Tunes, and the Looney Tunes challenge them to a basketball game because they're small and would be very easily defeated at a game like basketball, where height is an advantage.
Right.
And then they go after Michael Jordan once the odds get kind of flipped on them.
Right.
Right. Like that's sort of how it happens. Well, let's play basketball. Now let's get Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
In this one, it's so weird because the whole concept is that a computer algorithm played by Don Cheadle decides to challenge LeBron James at the very thing he's the best at.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I guess the argument back to that would be, well, no, he doesn't challenge him to basketball. He challenges him to Dom ball or whatever. And I'm like, okay.
He very quickly susses out that he can manipulate the cracks in their relationship as father and son to achieve this seemingly globally implicated plan of his instantly. Yes. Now, I know he's an algorithm, but he spots them in this boardroom very quickly and publicly, I must say, very unprofessional of LeBron James to have this discussion in front of these executives. Pointing out, like, you never just let me do me, Dad. I want to go to the E3 camp, not basketball camp. And Algae Rhythm is like, oh, I've instantly developed a plan around this exact dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, I'm also very tired of character goes into the computer. It's like, we know how computers work now. In the 80s, when Tron was around, this was a novel concept.
This should have been called Braun Legacy.
Braun Legacy, yes. But it's so like hackneyed and like, look, it's streams of information and blah, blah, blah. And like the way they depict it visually is so, I don't know, just stupid and whatever. And then, of course, so much has been said about the fact that the film is more than just Looney Tunes meets LeBron James.
Yeah.
It's every Warner Brothers IP under the sun meets LeBron James. And that, to me, is really where it loses the charm of the first one. Because the first one, like I said, it's not about anything. It's not a smart movie, but it's at least fun because it's like, oh, Looney Tunes, Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it's like corporation and LeBron James. And so there's no charm in that.
Corporation and branding vehicle. LeBron James is a very popular basketball player, just like Michael Jordan, and he thus is a magnet for sponsorships and brand recognition.
But I would say he's not just like Michael Jordan. Like your point that your kids didn't know who this was. We knew who Michael Jordan was. And my brother, who's much younger than me, knew who Michael Jordan was when that first one came out. Yeah. Like we knew it didn't matter. Michael Jordan was pop culture. LeBron James hasn't reached that status. He may be the greatest basketball player in the game currently, but he is not a pop culture icon in the way that Michael Jordan was. And so using him, I think, is already flawed. And then on top of that, like, I would also argue that for our generation, the 90s kids watching Bugs Bunny, it's like, yeah, we're watching Bugs Bunny on Cartoon Network anyway, but kids today don't even have a frame of reference for who Bugs Bunny is. And so to your point, who is this movie made for? I don't know. Kids certainly don't know who Bugs Bunny is, and most kids probably won't know who LeBron James is, and then top it all off with Matrix references and Austin Powers references and references to things that haven't mattered since 2003. Well, kids definitely don't know what was going on in 2003. Yeah. So it makes no sense that you're going to market the film that way. And I understand the idea is like, oh, here's something for adults too. But it's like, no, it hinges on that. I mean, even the DC Universe stuff where they go into the animated thing, it's based on Bruce Timm's designs, which have been off the air since like 2007.
Right. So all that stuff is aimed squarely at you, Dustin. It's aimed at young 30s. I'm going to go ahead and say men who grew up on these specific properties. And the only reason I can think of that they thought that would work is those people are now parents or they are critics.
Right.
Who might give this film a little bump, for the references. But like the fact that Wile E. Coyote is hanging out in Mad Max Fury Road, spray painting his face and about to kill himself with Witness Me. I laughed because I was like, that's funny, but it's more like a Robot Chicken thing, not like something, because it's just a throwaway gag. It's like, okay, obviously they don't mean to imply, or they do and they haven't fleshed it out, the idea that he's actually living in this story, because that has all sorts of horrible implications for him. Or the same with Daffy and Porky Pig in the DC universe. Where do they live?
I think that is the implication, is that they live there.
Right. And so it's just like, kids my kids don't know what that is. They're staring at it like, what is this? They don't even know who Wile E. Coyote. The first time they see a character they've never seen before is in a property they've never seen before.
Right, exactly.
What are they supposed to do?
Right. Why do I care about any of this? Yeah. And my thing is like, I didn't laugh at the Mad Max thing because I saw right through it, because I'm like, this is stupid, and I don't know who this joke is aimed at, because it's certainly not kids, and it's not me, because there's no punchline here. I know. The punchline is cartoon is in Mad Max. Oh, hilarious. Mm-hmm. Like that to me is not a quality joke. You can't just take cartoon character and put them in something dark and adult and assume that I'm going to laugh about it. And so there's that. There's like the Rick and Morty cameo, which it's like, again, who is that for? Who cares enough? And they mention all these things, Gandalf is name dropped and whatever. And it's just like, again, I don't care, and it makes no difference to me whatsoever. I did find it amusing that they mention Gandalf and they never show anything from Lord of the Rings, but they do show a lot of Game of Thrones, which, again, kids don't know what this is.
I hope not.
Right. I don't understand why that was even a thing. And then when you start saying, okay, well, let's focus on more of the cartoon characters. Okay, Scooby-Doo's in there. Okay, kids know that.
Yeah.
But do kids know Flintstones and Jabberjaw? And do kids know
I saw Jabberjaw?
like they don't know any of this.
No.
And so just outdated, and then in the crowd shots, you know, behind the game going on, you've got like knockoff versions of characters from films. And that to me raises a huge meta question, which is why does the Arnold Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze in the stands not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? It just looks like a random dude. Why does Pennywise not look like, what's his name, Bill Skarsgård or whatever? Yeah. Like, why? There's Cesar Romero's Joker in here, but it's not Cesar Romero. You got Danny DeVito's Penguin, but it's not Danny DeVito. This is the equivalent of, we went to Party City and bought costumes. We went to the Halloween spirit store or whatever, bought costumes and put vague, like people who have vague resemblances to these characters in the background. But why? If the thought story wise is that you're actually legitimately going into Batman 1966 and pulling Adam West and Burt Ward out of it and dropping them into the background, why don't they look like Adam West and Burt Ward?
Right.
It makes no sense. So then don't do it. That's the bottom line.
Do you want to go into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go into spoilers now. So that's our recommendation. If you are
don't see it,
that's our opinion. So we're gonna stick around for spoilers. If you want to hear about those. Okay, so I had a big, like I said before, my problem with the third act was because this film could have raised its score for me if the basketball game was actually pretty fun, like the one in the original film is. But the fact that it was so undefined, it didn't give me any sort of anchor. I don't know where in the game we are. I don't know how much is left. I don't even think there's a timer, if I'm not mistaken. It's just like, you know, the kid designs this game. It's not real basketball. And at least like in the original film, it is regular basketball to start. And then they realize like, hey, we're Looney Tunes. We can do anything. And so we're gonna ride around motorbikes and stuff. And they start to do that in this film too. It's all surrounded by these villains with weird powers that are undefined, and, you know, skill sets, you know, bad compositing. And just people getting a zillion points for doing some unexplained move.
But in the original, even when the Looney Tunes are riding around on motorcycles and being crazy, if they shoot the ball and it goes in the basket, they still only get 2 points.
Exactly.
Right. Like it's easy enough to follow.
Yeah.
In this, it is the most convenient screenwriting like thing I can think of, to just be like, the game has no rules and the points don't matter. And then all of a sudden you can just like, oh, this guy got 1,000 points and this guy got 1 million points and this guy got 100 points.
Like when you're a kid and you're pretending with like your siblings, you do that sort of thing where you just say, well, I got 1,000,000 points. I got 1,000,001 points, you know, and you do stuff. But the stuff that you watch has a little bit more groundedness and stakes to it, so that you actually learn, you know, you learn story dynamics like tension building and groundedness. So to see a film essentially devolve into the way a preschooler's brain works was disappointing, because it's like, this is a movie that people and adults are watching. Like, you can't even make it. The first film was so good at, like you said, like setting up the villains believably, you know, showing the Looney Tunes trying to handle the handling it, the aliens cheat. So then the Looney Tunes go, okay, what's the next best plan we have? Well, we're gonna get the best basketball player in the world to help us. He comes down, he tries to train us. We're not basketball players. And so then we play the game, and, you know, he motivates us. We believe in ourselves. We use our unique abilities. and we teach Michael how to best use his in our world, and then we win the game. And it actually like builds, and it's silly, and there's bad acting, and there's product placement, and there's, it's all a big commercial, but probably at 1/10 the scale of the commercial that this is. This is an HBO Max commercial. I mean, it's a LeBron James commercial, and it felt, so much of the film felt like it was like, you can only appreciate this film if you follow basketball. He's doing the thing, I got full court vision. Okay, one, I don't know what the fuck that means. Okay. Two, all right, because I don't watch basketball. I don't know what that shit means. Yeah. Second of all, oh, funny, full court vision. But like, if my dad said that to me, if my dad, who's a famous basketball player, was like, hey, don't try that, I got full court vision, I'd be like, shut up, Dad. No, you don't.
Yeah. Right.
Like, you're such an idiot, Dad.
Yeah, right.
Saying shit like that they say in the news about you. Pulling quotes about yourself and using it on your child. I don't give a damn who you are. You're famous. You think you're so cool. I don't think you're cool. You're lame, Dad.
Yeah, right.
When Tweety comes up to him and he's just like, yeah, you're a bad dad. I wanted to be like, fuck you, Tweety. What do you know? You're a bird.
Right. Yeah, right.
You're just a stupid bird.
I don't know. Like, all the stuff between LeBron and his son, I thought was incredibly contrived. Like, none of it mattered or had any weight. It's classic story of son wants something, but dad wants something else for son. And in this game, or in this film, it's just like the most,
it's so basic.
Just the stupidest resolution to that, which is, okay. And like, fine. And like, I don't know. It's just so dumb. There's no, and I don't know.
I'm willing to concede that to the film's credit as a basic building block of story structure, because we're at the point now where the stories that we consumed that teach those lessons are not, what's in front of, our kids' eyes. So they now have these, like this could be the first film that sort of introduces them to that concept. So I'm willing to go, all right, fine, it's going to serve that purpose. I just don't like it. But that's the only thing the film does that isn't like a giant thumbs down, is the basic thing of, here's the conflict, here's the resolution. Here's why this is happening in the first place, is because this father and son have this, very mildly and safely fractured relationship. Like, everything is fine except for the subject of video games. And it's like, that's their only problem as father and son. They totally respect each other when the film is over. They will have no more problems, no more conflict. That's it. We're good. And now the Looney Tunes live with us. Right.
But I would argue, like, okay, if you're going to go that route and you're going to mine that for dramatic potential, like, take it all the way. Like, don't be cliche about it. And like, my dad only wants me to play basketball, but I want to play video games. I want to make video games. And it's like, okay, first of all, one way that you ground that and make that seem real to me is you utilize technology that actually exists.
Yeah.
And I know that that's not fun, maybe, but like giving little Dom this little thing on his phone and he can like scan a person into his game.
Yeah.
I'm like, that doesn't exist. Like, this is stupid. This is now fantasy, and I have no grounding in the reality of the situation. Instead, I think what you do is you set it, like, I don't know, I'm just like throwing this out off the top of my head. You set it instead with like Dom wanting to go to that E3 camp or whatever. Like, that's the thing. He's trying to go. It starts tomorrow, right? Or whatever it is. And LeBron is like, no, I thought we'd go over here, or like whatever. And it's like, the stakes are more clearly presented, not because like, you never let me do me, but instead it's like, no, the thing that I want is like right there, right now. And you're pulling me away from it, Dad. Yeah. Like, I don't want to get in the car and go to basketball camp. I want to get in the car and go here. And like, I don't know. I just feel like the conflict shouldn't just be nebulous, like, just let me do me. It should be more like, I have to go to this camp. Like, that's my goal, is to go to the camp, not let me be me, which seems to be the goal here, the way it's presented anyway. And I don't know, it's just so like, I don't know. It bothers me so much how cliched this film is, and which leads me into the point, which is this film, I know it's called Space Jam: A New Legacy, and so it's going to have some of the building blocks of Space Jam, but this is like almost exactly Space Jam, just like beat for beat, but longer and less interesting. Space Jam 1 starts with like young Michael playing basketball at like 2 a.m. and his dad comes out for some inspiring words.
Yeah.
This one starts with LeBron like saying bye to mom and going to basketball
His asshole
practice.
coach taking away his Game Boy that he's not even playing on the court.
Right. And it's his coach being like, you need to be better because you're great and you're great. And which automatically sets the tone very differently than Space Jam, which Space Jam was never like, you're Michael Jordan, you're the greatest ball player that's going to ever live. It's more like his dad's like, okay, son, what do you want? And he's like, I want to go play basketball for the University of North Carolina.
I want to be the greatest basketball player ever.
Yeah, he's like, that's a great school. Okay, okay, bud, like let's practice.
Yep.
Like that's how it is. It's not like this pretense of like you're gonna be great.
Yeah,
and
when those credits roll, you're like, Michael is pursuing this dream he has just stated to us.
Correct.
But in this film, it's like, oh, LeBron gave up an interest of his to become famous. He sold out.
Correct.
His hobby or whatever.
Good point.
Good point. You're going through the credits and it's like, be excited. And I'm like, I'm just sad for him.
Right, exactly. And it's also interesting that like LeBron is still in his career. Yeah. Michael at that point was done with basketball.
Yeah.
And so we got to see like the clip this clip reel of like his entire career basically, which was great. But then if you remember in Space Jam 1, Michael lives in like the suburbs. It's like this pretty normal house with like his wife and his kids and his dog.
So below his means in that house.
Yeah, for sure. And then LeBron, it's like, here's my mansion and I've got all this cool stuff and a thing that shoots ball when I say ball.
Right.
And like all of these things, my son has this technology that no one will ever have because it's too advanced and it's great and he's Iron Man.
Right.
And like, that's fantastic.
And I still can't appreciate his skills, even though he just invented like artificial intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. It automatically, I know that Michael Jordan was super rich and so is LeBron James.
Yeah.
But what Space Jam 1 at least did, I think, for like kids growing up at that time was make Michael Jordan feel relatable. Like his house isn't that much better than mine.
He's neighbors.
He's got neighbors. He's got like Newman hanging around. Yes, he goes and plays golf with Larry Bird and Bill Murray, but like, it's just kind of like, he's just a dude. Yeah. And in this, they set LeBron so high up and they keep referring to him as like the greatest and you're the greatest. And yes, Space Jam 1 was a big ego stroke for Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But it at least tried to also make him relatable and, like where kids could be like, oh, Michael would be cool to hang out with. And we saw The Last Dance. He's probably the hardest person in the world to hang out with.
Something I caught the second time, or this time watching Space Jam, is Michael's gambling snuck its way into the story. If you remember, he's golfing. He's pretty much like, "We'll raise the stakes a little." He's like he's betting him like how close he can get to the tee to the hole or whatever. I was like, he's betting. I was like, man, I'm surprised.
That wasn't even scripted. That was just Michael on set.
He forgot that he was in a movie.
Hey, Bill Murray, let's bet here.
Oh, sorry. When I zone out, I bet $100,000.
Right, exactly.
How close I can hit a ball to the tee. Oh, where did this cigar and glass of bourbon come from?
Yeah, right.
Where am I? How long have I been here?
Right. Yeah, man, I don't know. And like, I love the pep talk at halftime, like all of that in Space Jam 1 is like, so it's iconic. It's, whatever. Yes, the film is not great. I'll say it over and over and over, but it at least makes sense and does some really cool things.
Yeah.
This film repeats those things in a less interesting way. Down to the very end. In the very end of Space Jam 1, Michael Jordan is like, he finally realizes, oh, like I'm a toon. I can stretch my arm really far. And like all of the Monstars are like on his back and he's like stretching his arm.
He's just a regular person who's really good at basketball, and he's still better than these big awkward aliens who have other NBA players' talent. But they didn't get Michael Jordan's talent because he wasn't a basketball player at the time and they didn't think to. And now here he is showing them up. And the minute they figure out that all they have to do is try to tackle him They foul him a bunch, but then he gets a pep talk from Bugs Bunny and he's like, oh, I'm going to use my imagination and I'm going to stretch my arm. And I'm watching that the other day and I'm getting chills watching it. I was like, that was a big moment. And it's just
a huge moment.
It's so cool. It's such an iconic, I know we're talking about Space Jam, but when you show if you were ever like cut a big montage of like iconic movie moments in the last 100 years, that should be in there. That's cool. Sure. That's a cool visual.
Yeah. And this is exactly the same way with none of the weight or intrigue or interest.
Yeah.
Where
they spend the entire film doing crazy stuff from the get-go.
Yep. And then CG Don Cheadle grabs hold of him and he's like, I'm going to do it anyway. And he does the final thing just like Michael does. It's exactly the same thing. And it's so obvious that they just took the original screenplay and just plopped in new things and it just doesn't work. It's just not interesting. And I don't know, Michael Jordan's not a great actor, but he had so much more charisma and they set him up to be more relatable. So in this film, when LeBron's also not a great actor, but they make him from the get-go seem like he's better than you at everything. How is a kid going to relate to that?
Except parenting.
Right.
But like,
true.
The LeBron and Michael are about even for me because Michael's not a good actor.
No.
And he has no character really in the first film. Yeah. But he succeeds in he does better than people give him credit for. Like all his scenes, it's like, like what can you do? Like all the scenes where he's talking to Bill Murray and they look like they're improvising to me. Like he's pretty natural on camera. It's more when he's on a green screen, he's talking to a Bugs Bunny who he can't see or hear. Okay, he's not an actor.
It's a little stilted.
LeBron James is more natural in front of the camera and they're giving him more to do, but his line delivery is so bad to me that it takes me out of the movie equally. So at the end of the day, it's like, oh, he's so much better than Jordan. It's like, no, he's having more fun than Jordan is. And he's going out there more, he's putting himself out there more. With him, like, did Taz do the like he clearly, LeBron James is clearly a fan of the characters.
Yeah.
And he's excited. Marvin the Martian, where Michael Jordan's like, oh, you're Bugs Bunny.
What the heck?
What is this? Where, LeBron's like, holy shit, I'm in the computer. It's a little more believable, but it's ultimately parallel.
Yeah, and it's just so it's just so frustrating how flat all of that is. His line delivery is not great. Man, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, there's just nothing here that I think will stick with current modern children. That in as much time has passed from Space Jam 1 to now, like if you move that much forward in time. Kids today aren't going to be talking about a new legacy like it's Space Jam. It's just going to be like, oh yeah, I think I saw that. I can't remember. And that's sort of testament to it's not made as a film. It's made as a commercial. And I do think for all of its flaws, Space Jam 1 was trying to be a movie. Like you got Bill Murray, you've got like seasoned actors around Michael.
Yeah.
You've got, Wayne Knight. You have all
Wayne
of that
Knight
going on.
Is so good in Space Jam.
He's so funny.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they allow Michael to be in the film the entire time with his friends, with Charles Barkley, with Larry Bird, with all these people. But like what's weird about this film is I don't know the other players that the villain characters are based on.
Right.
I don't know them. But LeBron never gets to interact with them in any meaningful way.
No. He
never gets like a scene with an established actor other than, I guess, Sarah Silverman and Steven Yeun, but they're only there for like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
So he never is surrounded by talent that way. I think for all of its flaws, Space Jam 1 was trying to be a film. It was trying to be a movie. And I don't get that impression from this film. I feel this was corporate from frame one.
Yeah.
And it never tried.
Yeah, I always try to like remind myself, like, okay, there are people who worked on this film who are passionate about the story and, maybe their execution flawed. But this is one of those films where it's like, there may have been people's names attached to director and writer, but this was such a committee. This is so transparently a studio committee marketing led film. You know, there's nothing there. I don't recognize anything artistic or creative about this, other than what you could ultimately make into a toy, you know? As a final thought, what would you rate the first Space Jam? What would your star rating be for that movie?
I would give it a 3-star. And granted, I have not rewatched it recently. But I'd say 3, maybe even 3.5, but that's just because of nostalgia. But 3, I think it's fine.
I'd give it 3.5.
I think it's good for what it does. It doesn't overextend itself and try to be something that it cannot possibly be. Like they knew, okay, we're not gonna like win an Oscar here with Michael Jordan, so let's just give him little to do. And you know what I mean? Like that, it didn't overreach. And likewise, like one thing that I do think is interesting is that Michael was in that entire film. LeBron is voiceover for most of this film. Which I think is telling to like, I think LeBron really championed this and wanted this. But then it's weird that he's not in every frame. Like it's so weird that he did most of this from a voiceover booth. And not that doing things from a voiceover booth is any less important. But it does speak to, I think, his level of commitment to it.
He's better on camera than he is in a voiceover booth.
Yeah, for sure. And there's no question, but there's no reason for him to be animated. They should have had him be live action throughout the film. But of course it's more work to integrate him with animated cell animation, which I guess is all digital now, but regardless,
that was a cost cutting measure. We can either composite him or we can just animate him
and put
design.
him in the booth. And he can do all of his lines in 3 days in the booth, and we'll call it a day, right? Whereas we'd have to actually like film him and light him and all of that stuff, and then composite him into the shots. It wouldn't. I mean, there's way more work involved in that, which again is why that original film is better in my mind, because they did the hard work.
There's more craft.
Yes, it's difficult. It's difficult. And again, not going to win any awards, but it wasn't trying to. It was trying to be essentially a Cartoon Network level film about an animated rabbit playing basketball with the biggest star in the world. And that's all it ever was. And this, they're like trying things that they're like, oh, and now apart from all of the father-son stuff, let's also throw in this big arc for Bugs where he's going to sacrifice himself. And I'm like, I don't see that at all. The original shorts, Bugs isn't some hero. Bugs is like a rascal. You know what I mean? And you can do that, but you got to get me there. You got to put in the hard work story-wise to make me believe that Bugs will do that at the end. And the only thing I saw in this film that would suggest that is that he missed his friends. But that's not enough to try to save them at the end.
He missed having people to fuck with.
That's right. He just wanted to be a rascal to all of these people. Like he wanted to plug Elmer Fudd's shotgun and blow his face off. That's what Bugs lives for.
Like he pulls LeBron in and he's like, now pull the thing down, say rabbit season. It's like, bro, you were lonely.
That's right.
You need this bit, don't you?
Yes. Also, that's cheap because that's a recycled bit. Again, I'm done. Actually, you know what? I'm done. I'm done talking about it. 1 star. It pissed me off. Space Jam 1, though. It's fine. If your kids are looking for a good time, there's that. I think it's probably a fine introduction to the Looney Tunes as well. But those shorts are on HBO Max now, the classic shorts. Show them those.
That's it. That's our spoiler discussion of Space Jam.
That's all, folks.
A new
You missed the opportunity. You didn't say that's all, folks.
Okay.